Capacity building. What is it and why does it matter? According to the definition of the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, in the global context, capacity refers to the ability of individuals and institutions to make and implement decisions and perform functions in an effective, efficient, and sustainable manner. One can look at capacity building in three ways. At the individual level, capacity building refers to the process of changing attitudes and behaviors, imparting knowledge and developing skills while maximizing the benefits of participation, knowledge exchange, and ownership. At the institutional level, it focuses on the overall organizational performance and functioning capabilities, as well as the ability of an organization to adapt to change. At the systemic level, it emphasizes the overall policy framework in which individuals and organizations operate and interact with the external environment. Recognizing the important role of capacity building over the years, the Tertiary Education Trust Fund has increasingly engaged in capacity building activities for Nigeria's tertiary institutions. The aim is to guarantee that all of the investments in infrastructure, library intervention, research grants, academic staff training and development, publication of journals, manuscript development, and conference attendance do not go to waste, but achieve the purpose for which they're designed. In the era of the knowledge economy, the ability of individuals, institutions, and systems to deliver on the terms of reference has never been so important. These are the chronicles of the journey to institutionalize research and development in Nigeria. Hello, and welcome to this edition of TETFund, The Paradigm Shift. I am Stanley Bentu. Now, since the 1950s, international organizations, governments, non-governmental organizations, and communities use the concept of capacity building as part of social and economic development in national and subnational plans. For example, the Sustainable Development Goal number 17, that is, strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development, advocates for enhanced international support for capacity building in developing countries to support national plans to implement the 2030 Agenda. For human resources to function effectively and efficiently, they need to have the requisite skills and abilities which come by way of capacity building. Even when TETFund set up 6 centers of excellence at 6 colleges of education across 6 geopolitical zones of the country, the fund pointed out that there were indices globally associated with tertiary institutions in bringing about innovation and development. Capacity building becomes even more crucial when an education curriculum review is imperative. The Executive Secretary of TETFund, architect Sonia Chono, had spoken to the Paradigm Shift about how a new curriculum will provide a more industrially useful graduate for the Nigerian economy.
How many people are we serving? We have a population of 200 million. Fine. You deaggregate this population to the sectors that they each belong and the roles that each players play. Some will apply to the entire population, like food. Everybody eats. Like in the health sector, we all fall sick and we need doctors and nurses. But you should be able to determine for an economy of 200 million people, how many doctors should we have? What is the doctor-patient ratio? We have international standards. When you determine that, you will ask yourself, how many are we producing? How many institutions are producing them? How many are we producing each year? How many are coming in from outside, the other institutions from other countries? How many of the ones we are producing are we losing to other countries that are offering them other conditions that are attractive, that will have this brain drain happening? So how many are left? That tells you what we describe as the skills gap. That is when you do that for all the various fields and areas and specializations, that's how you determine your manpower needs. It is also that those manpower needs that guide the policies around it, the priorities that we attach to each segment, which is why, for example, JAMB will say, okay, we have a total of 1 million spaces in our tertiary institutions. Universities have maybe 700,000. Out of the 700,000 in our universities, first you have to compare the capacity. What do we have to produce? Then with how many do we need? And you now make policies to ensure that you are producing enough for your economy. If you find that in a particular area you are overproducing, you incentivize it, you discourage it. For the areas that you don't have enough people at all, you create additional incentives for people to now move into that area. The same thing, you can also use your wage bracket to try and also do that. Because if me and you know that a particular sector pays more than others, tendency is to want to gravitate toward that area. So there are so many devices that are available and tools for management that are available. But once you have made that decision, having the right environment, creating the right environment to produce those graduates is what education is all about.
Well, the ES and his team are already hard at work, inspiring the required adjustments in public tertiary institutions. Now, when you think of the ingredients that make a winning football team, skill, teamwork, and tactics rank highly. But you'd be surprised at how much a squad's dynamic can make or break the budding of your ideas. Many new football managers have a tendency to spend all of preseason tweaking their squads and rebuilding tactics and preparing how to adapt their players to new philosophies and tactics. Just like a new football manager on the pitch, the executive secretary of TETFund, along with his team, are preparing public colleges of education to adapt to the needs of a modern Nigerian society and produce better educators in the near future. Now, TETFund is doing this by organizing a 2-day capacity building workshop for the colleges of education. Let's see how that went.
On Monday, the 18th of July 2022, the Tertiary Education Trust Fund held a capacity building workshop for public colleges of education in Abuja with the theme Enhancing Pedagogical Skills and Curriculum Development for Quality Education Delivery in Nigerian Colleges of Education. The workshop, which took place at the NAF Conference Center in Abuja, is the second exercise meant for colleges of education, following up on one in Lagos for Southern Nigerian colleges, this time for colleges in the North region of the country. The Executive Secretary of the National Commission for Colleges of Education, Professor Paulinus Chijioke, in his keynote address at the event, explained that the theme of the event was carefully selected based on the importance attached to the production of world-class teachers for the basic education level in the country that can fit into the competitive global society.
The teachers here, the lecturers here, the planners here must receive regular training and pedagogical skills development in teacher education to salvage the dwelling education sector of our country. This series of training will serve as intervention programs for teacher education.
In his speech, Professor Okwele also spoke about the curriculum, disclosing that the process of curriculum development is an issue that keen attention must be paid to in the NCE program.
NCC as a regulatory body to all NCE awarding institutions has its key mandate to include, among other things, revamping the basic education sector through curriculum planning, as well as monitoring the quality delivery of the NC program. That is why we have just rolled out a new curriculum for the NC 2020 that was resolved, and we have asked our colleges to start implementing it, and I think by the end of this academic session, it will be 1 year old. And I want to assure you that we are not going to wait till 5 years before we review that again, because we must re-strategize.
The Executive Secretary of TETFund, Architect Sonia Chono, speaking at the event, regretted the dwindling enrollment of students into education courses across tertiary institutions of learning, saying it is negatively impacting the delivery of quality education in the country. He also expressed concern over the poor remuneration of teachers and the unfavorable perception of teaching in the country as a key reason best brains flee from the profession.
Because we as a people, as a government, have chosen not to accord teachers that honor, that prestige, that respect that they deserve. The students don't care about them. Many of the students are more comfortable than the teachers. They even have better cars for those that even have cars at all. And they look down on them. They are rude to them. We have situations where teachers, especially at the basic level, and those are your products, will be owed salaries for 12 months, 15 months. How can a teacher who has not been paid his salary for 10 months deliver any curriculum at all? How? How is he supposed to pay or feed his family? Pay school fees, medical bills, and other things that we all do. And if that teacher is not teaching at that foundational level, what are you building on? So we talk about falling standards, we have to go to the roots of falling standards. If the teacher who is supposed to be imparting that knowledge is looking for how to survive, and the society responds to it. Because when a teacher comes to rent your house, you know he's not guaranteed, they won't be paying him his salary, which means your rent may not be coming regularly. You refuse to give him accommodation. Even down to the issue of even giving your daughter in marriage. If you say you are a teacher, they say, can he take care or look after my daughter? This is where what we have done to ourselves in this country.
The Executive Secretary shed a light of hope when he said the government at all levels will continue to establish more schools to meet the growing demand of the country's ever-increasing population of school children, as despite poor funding, the government cannot close its eyes to the needs of children. He challenged participants at the workshop to come up with robust ideas and curricula to attract more Nigerians to the institutions.
The issue of curriculum delivery. Most of our curricula are outdated. And we keep talking about this at every seminar, at every workshop. What are we doing about it? Yes, thank God you are here. We need subject experts sitting on as teams, groups, and working on each of these curriculum. Jigging it. It should be even an iterative, something that goes on all the time, because improvements are like that. And you cannot finish all the work in one day. Just as we have, that is really the purpose of having specializations and professional groups, to continuously and actively work on these improvements that are desirable for the advancement of society. Let's work on it and keep changing, and keep improving, and keep adapting. Because that is the truth, and that is the reality, and it has multiple advantages. What is even more painful is the practice, and nearly every state, there are only very few exceptions. Nearly every state in this country is guilty of this. If you see the payroll of teachers, in some cases more than half, and I'm talking as somebody who has information, authority, and data. In some states, more than half of the names on the payroll of teachers in this country have nothing to do with our classrooms. They are political thugs, children and wives of political office holders, and many of them are fictitious names there to enable the political leaders siphon money, because it's the easiest way of them collecting money from the system. And it is those fake names that they pay first. When you confront them, I have confronted more than 8 different governors on this matter. And they try to explain to you the exigency of their office and certain things they have to do that they cannot, there is no funding for it. If traditional rulers are coming to go to your audits to pay homage, you are getting video, there is no provision for it. They have to find a way of getting money to, and they say, is it teaching education? They are doing it to security votes. We are not asking too many questions. Because yes, security can be anything. But not education. No education fund should be applied as a slush fund or to settle any political or other, even in community.
TETFund interventions are significant in capacity building, and that assists the staff of Nigeria's public colleges of education in discharging their duties more effectively and efficiently. This is, however, not to say that more effort is not needed. Effective capacity building requires ongoing assessment and attention. The broad result of a capacity building effort is an overall strengthening of purpose, but more concrete improvements are key. Concrete goals might include a strategic plan, improved techniques, improved skills, improved communication, and addressing changes in national development needs.
Capacity building is investment in the long-term health and success of your institutions. Now, in broad terms, capacity building activities encompass anything that enables an organization or a team to do its job better. Now, whether capacity improvement leads to a greater scope or increased efficiency, it optimizes the ability of individuals, organizations, communities, and systems to achieve a positive impact on those that they serve. So, how much impact did this particular workshop have on the participants? Let's find out.
The 2-day capacity building workshop for public colleges of education, organized by TETFund in Abuja, is designed to enhance the appropriate teaching and learning process. Technocrats spoke extensively and presentations were made, inspired by the central theme, enhancing pedagogical skills and curriculum development for quality education delivery in Nigerian colleges of education. The following sub-themes, born out of the central theme, were conceived and assigned to professional scholars for broader input during the workshop. Refocusing basic education curriculum content and value reorientation of social mindsets and relevance of NCE graduates in Nigeria. ICT and equipment availability for basic education instruction and utilization for pedagogical skill training for quality education delivery. Making the Nigerian Certificate in Education, NCE, more relevant for global competitiveness in the knowledge economy, challenges and way forward. Funding adequacy of colleges of education, appraisal of stakeholders' responsibilities. appraising curriculum development models and teachers' pedagogy skills in adequate basic education delivery in Nigeria. The paradigm shift spoke exclusively with some of the participants to get a sense of how impactful the workshop has been.
The workshop was very, very rewarding, very enriching. We are very grateful to the sponsors who are TETFund and NCC who are collaborating, and the people that provided the resource persons. The college education system has actually been, to some extent, neglected. So much attention is not given to it as much. But since they are bringing all these workshops, it's enriching the teaching profession itself.
Particularly as it borders on the NCE program, from the provosts to the deans of faculties of education, from the colleges of education to other staff of both NCCE and TETFund, and then the resource persons and others who have been invited. They're finding the program very rich, from the topics to the delivery, everything. And there are issues bordering on contemporary matters as they relate to education in Nigeria.
The capacity building takes us back to school to some of those issues we have left behind. Moreover, it also exposes us to the ongoing things that are going on in society today. Society is dynamic, knowledge too is dynamic. So it puts us in touch with what is going on presently and positions us well to be able to lead our institutions very well.
This particular workshop, which hampers on methodology, pedagogy of teachers in the classroom, is very, very enriching. And it will help the teachers a lot in performing their duties in the classroom.
Myself and others who are participating were definitely impacted in one way or the other. And this impact is on the total person. You cannot separate it from your life or any other thing. Once you are impacted, you are impacted. And the issues discussed here are very, very relevant when we go back by what we have learned. We're going to change the tone of the teaching, the tone of managing resources, the tone of looking ahead to what is before us as institutions.
But my expectation is that when the issues have been put together, they will be implemented. Because the joy of the resource persons, the joy of TETFund and NCCE organizing this program will be that after everything, there will be implementation of the things agreed upon. And education should be able to move to the next level. And then graduates of colleges of education will be able to compete, favorably with graduates from similar programs across the world.
This capacity building has opened our eyes to see. So I am hoping that at the end of this meeting, we will go back refined, refreshed, and positioned for better productivity.
The gathering has indeed provided an insight into what is required of the colleges of education, even as they prepare to update their curricula to become more relevant to national needs. No doubt, Nigeria's public tertiary education institutions will become more relevant for the country in its quest to move up the global economic ladder, growing from a developing to a developed nation through research, development, and innovation.
Innovation is the cornerstone of sustained economic growth and prosperity. It is the using of new ideas that lead to the making of any new product, services, or processes. 84% of executives say that their future success is dependent on innovation. Now, although innovation may sound like a buzzword for some, there are many reasons why TETFund puts a lot of emphasis on it. It also plays an important role in economic growth. The ability to resolve critical problems depends on new innovations, and especially developing countries need it now more than ever. Now, there are generally two ways to increase the output of the economy. The first is to increase the number of inputs that go to the productive process. And second, to come up with new ways to get more output from the same number of inputs. Now, the latter describes the essence of innovation quite well. The purpose of innovation is to come up with new ideas and technologies that increase productivity and generate greater output and value with the same input. But innovation is only possible when we continue to update our academic curricula based on the demands of our socio-economic realities. And to do so, capacity building has to be a regular exercise. And that is the paradigm shift. Join us again on the next edition of the program. But until then, thank you for stopping by. Good night.